Africa, the cradle of humanity. A continent that has given birth to civilizations, culture, and creation. A land of 1.4 billion people, spanning 54 nations, rich with languages, customs, and potential beyond imagination. For generations, Africa has been seen through lenses colored by conflict, colonization, and chaos. But what if the story changed? What if Africa united, not just in spirit or song, but in structure and sovereignty? What if the dream of a United States of Africa wasn't just a fantasy, but a future? The idea isn't new. It's more than a century old. Leaders like Marcus Garvey envisioned a united global Africa. Then came giants like Kwame Nkrumah, who believed in continental unity as the ultimate form of liberation. Africa must unite, he declared in 1963, not as a hope, but as a warning. And he wasn't alone. Visionaries across the continent saw that the same colonial powers who divided Africa geographically had left behind deeper divides, economic, political, even psychological. But they also believed that those divides could be healed. And that unity wasn't just desirable. It was inevitable. Today, in 2025, the conversation is more relevant than ever. Why? Because the world is changing, and fast. African nations are rising. Economies like Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Kenya are outpacing expectations. Rwanda is redefining innovation. Senegal is embracing green energy. Young people, who make up over 60% of the population, are pushing boundaries, questioning traditions, and demanding progress. The African Continental Free Trade Area is already the largest of its kind, hinting at a continent ready to trade and thrive together. So, the question becomes, if Africa can do this economically, why not politically? Why not socially? Why not as one voice? The dream of unity carries massive potential. A single government could end decades of conflict over borders drawn by outsiders. A united economy could reduce poverty, stimulate industrial growth, and finally allow Africa to process and profit from its own raw materials. Imagine African factories building African tech for African consumers. Imagine roads that stretch from Cairo to Cape Town, from Lagos to Nairobi, built by African engineers and funded by African banks. A United States of Africa could hold immense political leverage. No longer a collection of weak, easily manipulated states, but a powerhouse bloc on the global stage. In global summits, at the United Nations, on issues like climate change and trade, the continent would speak not with 54 small voices, but with one mighty one. Africa could finally demand, not beg, for its share of respect, wealth, and justice. And then there's security. What if African peacekeeping forces could prevent genocide, stop terrorism, and stabilize regions in turmoil, without needing foreign armies or delayed UN mandates? What if the continent had a shared intelligence network to combat extremism, trafficking, and organized crime? These aren't fantasies. They are possibilities. And yet, for every possibility, there is a problem. Because unity isn't easy. Not in a continent with thousands of ethnic groups, hundreds of languages, and deeply rooted mistrusts. Many nations struggle with internal instability. Some are led by democratic governments. Others by military juntas. Who decides which system leads the united whole? Who becomes president? Who yields power? Would a small island nation like Seychelles have the same voice as a giant like Nigeria? Would countries with large oil reserves willingly share them with those struggling for basic resources? Would the elites of powerful states give up national pride for continental identity? Then there's corruption. If one nation struggles to manage its own systems, how would it help manage a continent-wide union? Would a larger government mean larger corruption? And what of the economy? Mixing stable economies with weaker ones could drag down the whole system. A shared currency might spark inflation or collapse under mismanagement. Some fear it would mirror the euro crisis, where stronger economies had to carry weaker ones. What if some countries simply can't keep up? The cultural challenges are just as real. Would people in Morocco truly see themselves as brothers to those in Lesotho? Could centuries of linguistic and tribal distinctions be overcome by a flag and anthem? Would ordinary citizens, who already mistrust their local governments, Place faith in a distant Pan-African government headquartered thousands of miles away? And let's not forget external forces. Powerful countries have much to lose from a united Africa. Cheap labor, easy access to minerals, and divided negotiation tables have benefited the West and East alike. Would they let go without resistance? Or would they interfere, destabilize, and sabotage this movement like they have with others? History gives clues. The European Union, despite being far more culturally similar, has struggled with unity. Brexit revealed the fragility of the system. Nationalism is rising again. If Europe can't fully hold together, can Africa? Still, despite the doubts, there are reasons for hope. The African Union already exists and has laid important groundwork. Free trade agreements are increasing. Pan-African organizations, media, and movements are growing. Technology is bridging the language gap. Social media is uniting young Africans across borders. And the youth, the beating heart of the continent, are saying enough is enough. They're rejecting the idea that Africa must always play catch-up. They want to lead. And that leadership doesn't mean losing national identity. It means finding strength in shared purpose. It means building a system where nations collaborate without losing their soul. Unity doesn't have to mean uniformity. It can mean coordinated independence, a shared direction toward prosperity. So what's next? Some believe a gradual approach is best. Regional blocs, like ECOWAS in West Africa or the EAC in East Africa, could first integrate tightly. Then, over time, these regional alliances could connect into a larger federation. Others argue for bold, decisive moves, scrapping borders, creating a continental constitution, and starting fresh. Either way, the dream remains. Imagine an African passport that grants free movement across the continent. Imagine one African central bank, one African defense force, one African space agency, one African standard of education. Imagine children born into a continent that sees itself not as divided fragments, but as one powerful whole. Is this a bold dream? Absolutely. Is it a looming nightmare? Possibly, if mishandled, rushed, or corrupted. But every great achievement in history once seemed impossible. Europe was once torn by endless war. America was once 13 bickering colonies. Asia was once under colonial rule. What changed those regions was vision, leadership, sacrifice, and time. The United States of Africa may not arrive tomorrow, but it is no longer a whisper on the margins. It is a growing roar, carried in classrooms, in conferences, in community halls, and in the minds of the next generation. Whether it becomes a reality or fades as another failed idea will depend not on the politicians, but on the people. On whether Africans can rise above division and remember what they share. History, struggle, strength, and the unshakable belief that their story is not over. The vision of a united Africa lingers in the air, both inspiring and unsettling. For some, it is the ultimate expression of dignity, a final rejection of colonial borders and foreign domination. For others, it is a dangerous gamble, a vision too big, too complex, too fragile to sustain. But as time moves forward, the dream refuses to die. Across the continent, debates rage in markets and parliaments, on radio shows and street corners. Some argue that even if unity takes decades, the steps taken now, trade deals, joint infrastructure projects, cultural exchanges, will still pay dividends. Others warn that unless the foundations are strong with justice, accountability, and trust, any attempt at unification could collapse under its own weight. The outside world is watching closely, even nervously. Investors see opportunity. Politicians in Washington, Beijing, Brussels, and Moscow see potential allies or rivals. Corporations see the largest untapped consumer market on Earth. But how much of Africa's destiny will remain in African hands? That, too, is part of the struggle. In some places, small victories already hint at what's possible. Shared power grids lighting up villages. Regional railways connecting inland farms to coastal ports. Pan-African universities educating the next generation of leaders. Citizens waving both their national flags and the African Union flag with equal pride. In other places, setbacks remind everyone how far there is to go. Border skirmishes flare up. Corruption scandals shake governments. Refugees flee from conflicts that unity was supposed to prevent. The continent's contradictions, its beauty and brutality, its wealth and poverty, its solidarity and suspicion remain side by side. But unity is never born in comfort. Every great union in history was forged in fire through wars, debates, compromises, and relentless persistence. Why should Africa be any different? And the youth continue to push. From the crowded streets of Lagos to the quiet classrooms of Addis Ababa, from the tech hubs of Nairobi to the marketplaces of Dakar, young Africans are imagining something bigger than the lines drawn on maps. They are rejecting the narrative that they are merely victims of history, insisting instead that they can be authors of a future. They are questioning why raw materials are shipped abroad and sold back at 10 times the price. Why visas make it easier for a European to cross African borders than for an African. Why the world treats their nations as competitors instead of collaborators. And they are asking, very loudly, why Africa, with all its gold and oil and diamonds, its fertile lands and brilliant minds, should remain at the mercy of others. They are daring to believe that one Africa could mean more than the sum of its parts. It may take a generation, or two, or more, but the idea is alive, and ideas are powerful. They survive wars. They outlast dictators. They endure setbacks. And eventually, they find their time. As the sun sets over the Sahara and rises over the savannas, Africa stands at a crossroads. The dream of a United States of Africa remains just that, a dream, but one that feels closer today than ever before. Whether it becomes reality depends not only on the leaders who shake hands at summits, but on the millions who walk dusty roads, who plant seeds in the soil, who sing in churches and mosques, who code in cafes and teach in classrooms. The future of Africa will not be given. It will be built brick by brick, choice by choice, dream by dream. And so the question remains, can Africa rise above its scars and craft a new identity? Can it honor its dazzling diversity while building a common destiny? The answer, perhaps, lies not in whether it can but whether it will. For in the end, the United States of Africa is more than politics or policy. It is a testament to hope itself, the stubborn, unbreakable belief that tomorrow can be better than today. And as history has shown time and time again, hope when shared is unstoppable. So the world waits, holding its breath. Will Africa seize the moment? Will it rise as one? Or will the dream slip through its fingers again? Only the people of Africa can decide. And the story is still being written. And so the story continues, carried forward in the hearts of millions who wake each day beneath the African sky. On streets alive with movement and color, in villages where traditions run deep, in cities that glow with the hum of technology and trade, the dream breathes quietly, waiting. Even the land itself seems to speak of unity. The rivers that flow across borders without permission, nourishing countless fields. The winds that sweep over deserts and savannas alike, touching every nation equally. The wildlife that roams freely, oblivious to man's invisible lines. Nature has never recognized the borders humans drew. Perhaps that is the lesson, that Africa was never meant to be divided. Yet, as the sun rises, challenges also rise. Corruption does not vanish simply because of good intentions. Militias and armies still clash in forgotten corners. Old rivalries flare, sometimes over little more than pride. And the temptation of power, so alluring, so destructive, lurks behind every political promise. Some leaders use the dream of unity as nothing more than a slogan, a convenient distraction from their failures at home. They speak of brotherhood while hoarding wealth. They stand on podiums and invoke Pan-African ideals while silencing dissent and clinging to outdated models of governance. But the people are watching. And more than ever, they are speaking. In song, in protest, in art, in code, they express what generations before them could only imagine. They demand not just unity but justice, not just progress but fairness, not just a flag but a future. Across the continent, quiet revolutions take shape. Farmers organize cooperatives that stretch across borders. Engineers collaborate on regional energy grids. Universities create programs that invite students from every corner of the continent. Films and music celebrate a shared heritage while daring to envision something new. Social media has become a digital savannah where ideas sprint faster than bullets, connecting Ghanaians to Kenyans, South Africans to Algerians. A young coder in Kigali can speak instantly with an activist in Bamako, a designer in Cairo with a poet in Windhoek. And each connection chips away at the false belief that they are strangers to one another. Meanwhile, in boardrooms and summit halls, the debate rages. Should there be one currency? Should armies merge under a single command? Should a president of Africa be elected, or would a council of nations be safer? Who will lead? And who must step aside? The arguments are fierce. But even the arguments themselves are proof of something. People are no longer content to sit quietly. The continent is no longer asleep to its own possibilities. Elsewhere in the world, the old powers continue to watch with wary eyes. Some offer aid, but with strings attached. Others invest, but only to extract. And some quietly work to sow division, because a united Africa threatens their interests. After all, unity would mean Africa setting its own prices for its resources, negotiating its own deals, building its own industries without needing handouts or permission. But Africa has always been bigger than the schemes of others. Bigger than the chains placed upon it. Bigger than the doubts cast by outsiders. And it is here, in the ordinary lives of millions, that the extraordinary future is being written. A young woman wakes before dawn in a dusty village and studies by candlelight, determined to become a lawyer who fights for the voiceless. A boy in a crowded township repairs discarded electronics, dreaming of becoming an engineer who designs machines that change lives. A farmer teaches her children to respect the land because it is not just soil, it is history, it is sustenance, it is sacred. An elder gathers the youth beneath a baobab tree to tell them stories of ancestors who endured worse yet dreamed bigger. And all of them, whether they realize it or not, carry a piece of the same vision. A continent that no longer waits for permission to thrive. A people who no longer accept crumbs when they deserve the whole table. A future that honors its past yet refuses to be trapped by it. The dream of a United States of Africa is not a single moment that arrives fully formed. It is a long journey of small victories, of failures that teach, of persistence that inspires. It will be messy. It will be hard. It will take time. But history reminds us that everything worth building takes time. One day, perhaps, children will ask why their grandparents ever thought of themselves as separate. Why borders mattered more than brothers. Why flags flew higher than futures. And maybe, on that day, Africa will finally stand not as pieces of a puzzle scattered by others, but as one masterpiece, crafted by its own hands. Until then, the dream lives on. Not in the halls of power alone, but in the hearts of the people. Not as a question of if, but as a question of when. And as the sun sets on another day in Africa, the answer whispers in the wind, carried across mountains and valleys, deserts and seas. We are many. We are one. We are Africa. And our story is just beginning. And so the night falls, quiet and vast, over the continent, but the dream does not sleep. It moves silently in the hearts of the restless, in the prayers of the hopeful, in the footsteps of those who refuse to stand still. In a bustling market in Accra, traders call out their prices as neighbors and strangers haggle good-naturedly, unaware that their commerce, simple and ancient, is a small act of unity. In the neon-lit streets of Johannesburg, teenagers dance to music that blends Zulu rhythms with Moroccan beats, Sudanese chants with Congolese guitars, unaware that they are already living the culture of a united Africa. In a dusty classroom in Bamako, a teacher draws a map on the chalkboard, the familiar jagged borders separating each country, yet in his mind, he imagines a map without lines, only one great home. In refugee camps, in hospitals, in government offices, in busy ports, in quiet villages, everywhere there are people carrying their part of the vision, even if they do not yet know it. For unity is not only about treaties or summits or speeches. It is also about 1,000 small acts of kindness, respect, and connection. It is in the way a Kenyan farmer shares seeds with his Ugandan neighbor. It is in the way a Senegalese fisherman teaches his craft to a boy from Sierra Leone. It is in the way a Nigerian entrepreneur invests in a Ghanaian startup, not because he must, but because he believes in something bigger than borders. It is in the laughter of children who do not care which side of the river they were born on. But unity also demands hard choices. It asks, are we willing to sacrifice short-term gain for long-term good? Are we brave enough to trust those we once fought? Are we strong enough to forgive, yet determined enough never to forget? History will not wait. The world moves fast. Already, rising seas threaten the coasts. Already, droughts creep into once fertile lands. Already, foreign companies circle like vultures, eager to take more than they give. Will Africa face these challenges divided? Or will it rise to meet them together? Across the continent, debates continue. Some call for immediate, radical action: tear down the borders, merge the armies, speak as one. Others counsel patience: build trust, strengthen institutions, take slow, deliberate steps. Both sides care. Both believe. Both fear the consequences of failure. Perhaps they are both right. Perhaps unity is not one act, but 1,000. Not one leap, but many steps. And yet there are glimpses of what could be. On a train that rolls across the savannah, passengers from 5 countries share stories and food, laughing as though they've known each other forever. On a university campus in Kigali, students debate passionately about governance and justice, not as Tanzanians or Egyptians or Liberians, but simply as Africans. On the floor of a workshop in Nairobi, engineers huddle over blueprints for a solar grid that will stretch across 3 nations. On the shores of Lake Victoria, fishermen from opposing tribes untangle their nets together as the sun sets, the water glittering gold between them. These moments are fragile, but they are real. For even in the face of betrayal, oppression, and pain, Africa has always found ways to heal, to rise, to surprise the world. There will still be setbacks. There will still be those who exploit division. Those who say it cannot be done. Those who whisper, why even try? But then, someone remembers that this land carried humanity when it was just learning to stand. That these people built kingdoms before others learned to write. That this soil gave birth to kings, queens, scholars, warriors, dreamers. That this continent has always been more than the world dared to believe. And so under the moonlight, above the deserts and mountains, across forests and fields, the quiet hum of possibility grows louder. Somewhere tonight, a girl is writing a poem about her homeland, and she does not end it with borders. Somewhere, a boy is sketching the flag of a continent and it has no lines to divide. Somewhere, a leader is thinking not of what he can take but what he can leave behind. Somewhere, an elder smiles, watching the young dream what she once only dared to hope. The future will not come easily. But then again, nothing worth having ever does. And so, the dream remains not locked in the minds of politicians or carved into the walls of buildings, but alive in the people who, day by day, choose hope over fear, unity over division, tomorrow over yesterday. One day, perhaps, the children of Africa will look back at this time and say, that was when it began. When the dream finally woke up. When the impossible became inevitable. And maybe they will smile, knowing that it was never really a question of dream or nightmare. Because dreams are not always perfect. And nightmares, too, can end. What matters is what you do when you wake. Africa is waking. And the world is watching. And so, as the sun finally sets over Africa, as golden light spills across her mountains, rivers, deserts, and cities, one truth becomes clear. The dream of a United States of Africa is not just an idea written in speeches or whispered in secret. It is alive. It is fragile. It is fierce. It is the hope carried by millions who refuse to believe that their destiny is to remain divided. It is the quiet strength of a people who have endured centuries of exploitation yet still stand tall. It is the bold belief that Africa does not need saving, only the chance to save itself. Whether this dream becomes reality or fades once more into the shadows will depend on the choices made today, by ordinary people and by leaders alike. Because unity is not given. It is built. Slowly. Patiently. Brick by brick, hand by hand, heart by heart. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. That the true power of Africa has never been in its borders, its governments, or even its resources, but in its people. People who dare to imagine a tomorrow brighter than today. People who believe that even the impossible can be done. And so, the question remains, not if Africa can unite, but when. The world is watching. Africa is rising. And the story, is just beginning. If this story moved you, share it. If this vision inspired you, speak about it. And if you believe Africa's dream belongs to everyone, then subscribe, because together we'll keep uncovering the stories that matter most. Tell us in the comments, do you see a United States of Africa as a dream worth fighting for? Or a risk too great to take? Until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of people to change the world.